Hello, intrepid viewers. Dr. Lena coming to you from Australia. And just before I take off, I'm taking off tomorrow, but more on that later. Now, it's still a buzz, isn't there, about the Mamdani and all the other election wins. It's still such food for the soul. It's just fantastic. So, and a big wake-up call, I think, for the GOP and the centrist Dems. It's just amazing and we mustn't take it for granted. At the same time, more work to be done. So Mamdani said something that I think is interesting, which is if you want to get to any of us, you have to come through all of us. And I love that sentiment. And so I think the message there is make it too big to steal. Oh, oh. So as we sit here, there are mumblings about the Dems. I think 10 Dems have indicated they're prepared to do a deal to continue things running through at least until January. So it would appear Schumer's doing what he does best, which is leading the cave in, but it's still not, it's not a complete cave in. Let's hope it's a temporary measure. So it's apparently for, I think it's veterans, military construction. What is that? Building internment camps or something. It covers some things, but it does not address the core issue, which is the rise in healthcare payments. So let's have a look here how that's panning out. And there's been other bits of good news too, and it's sort of a surprise. I'm on a 3-beat brain delay. None of us are used to good news. Mind you, there's plenty of difficulty going around, so we won't get too excited, but it's good. Now, will they get this? I guess it's a continuing resolution through. I just want to say, take a moment to say here, I don't know of any other government in the world that does this shutdown, threat of shutdown stuff halfway through any president's term, or not even halfway. It's so destabilizing and it takes all the political energy off the game. So people aren't governing for months leading into this stuff. It's just a crazy system. Okay, so let's have a look at the Dems and the shutdown. Okay, so yes, I think it's going to go ahead. There's the rather lovely temperance card here, which is about balance and all those things. Now, if this was a normal political cycle, and none of us can even remember normal, can you? No, I can't. This would just be gorgeous and people had come to an agreement. But it's a bit more laden in these times, but it is still a strong suggestion they will actually go for this. The Page of Cups here, surprising news. So there might be another development, literally in the next day or so, that could be a game changer in terms of this, something that's pulled off the table or something that's put on the table, because it's not guaranteeing all these federal programs that should be working that aren't because of the shutdown. It's very partial, it's micro, but something's going to come in and throw the cat amongst the pigeons. So in terms of the Dems, they're now caught in a more uncomfortable space and have to do some soul searching. Now, I digress. If you're new to this channel, get used to the digressions. I think what those interim elections taught us and showed us was that the Dems have to embrace the idea of taxing the uber wealthy. Like they go as far as no new tax breaks for the rich, and that's something, but it is still middle of the road. The corporate Dems are very uncomfortable and do not think about the idea of taxing the uber rich, which includes many of them, if it comes to that. But I think this is a time of soul searching for the Dems now, right? I think this is interesting, very interesting. America is a huge country. It's 50 little countries. What works for Mamdani in New York is not going to work in other parts of America, but we're all grown-ups. We understand that. But versions of this, because if the Democratic Party embraces this idea of sharing the pain, it's an easy one to sell. Why should just the poor, the working class, and the middle class bear all the pain? Share the pain is a very simple message, and let the GOP defend why the rich shouldn't pay taxes. It shouldn't be the Dems' job, it should be the GOP's job to defend that. So I think they're thinking about it. And all of this is around money. But this is very slow. Back to the question, which is the Dems and the continuing resolution. The surprise news about money. Maybe there's more money available than they thought, or less money available than they thought. But as for the shutdown itself, because I'm assuming here Chuck Schumer was born with a functioning spine. So they might hold out longer into the new year, even though it causes upset, inconvenience, and grief. It's so important. And this is the slow moving, steadfast horse, gives me a bit of optimism. And I think this is the card here of relief on some level. I think there's many Dem voters who are relieved to see them standing up, you know. So they shouldn't be afraid of fighting. Just go for it. Just go for it. All right, now, also, we're seeing pushback in all sorts of big ways and small ways. And for now, we've got the joy of Michael Wolff, who's countersuing Melania. And the juicy bit about that, as I understand it, is that Melania and Trump would have to appear in court for this case. When I say have to, God knows, but would be expected to appear in court. What's the betting Melania's case gets withdrawn? Because they can't stand the light of day. They're absolute vampires. They can't do daylight. Okay. So there's that. There's also Letitia James. Now, she is countersuing on the grounds of vindictive prosecution. Well, we could all give 1,000 examples of the terrible things, the wretched, disparaging infantile abuse that the Yeti heaped on her head. So there's no shortage of evidence with that case either. And now he's only got, baby puppets in law because real lawyers have all left Washington. And so it's a silly statement. You know what I mean? Symbolically, they've left the White House. That could as well. But for me, the most important is the Supreme Court is actually flexing its little latent muscles. And even Justice Roberts and people are going, Excuse me, maybe he doesn't have absolute powers of national emergency into the sunset. Well, you bastards gave him immunity, so do I have any sympathy with the hand-wringing? No. However, let's have a look at that. So this is the Supreme Court asking questions about the use and abuse of emergency powers, will they still protect him? And can someone answer me this or give me your opinion in the comments? Why they overrode the Constitution to give him total immunity, why can't they roll that back? But anyway, let's just focus on this question for now, the emergency powers. Oh, phones. Ah, okay, let's go. In this context, I think with this Nine of Cups, I think this was the Heritage Foundation and all those organisations that have spent decades stacking the Supreme Court. They thought they had it all in the bag, and to a certain extent they do. 6-3, it's disgusting. So this is them. They are anticipating an automatic ruling in their favour. Anything Trump does is fine. That's what they're hoping for. So this is the King of Cups, used to be my Biden card when he was pres. I think in this case it could represent Justice Roberts, who must be having the odd qualm about being such a total compromised hypocrite that he is. I think he's having a bit of a thought because the court itself is divided because Kavanaugh, inappropriate, should never have been allowed to sit. However, he's sort of, I think, uncomfortable with these abuse of powers, and Amy Coney Barrett. They might have a hung jury, so to speak, like holding all this up. If they're completely gutless, which is entirely possible, the Supreme Court, I mean, they might just kick it back down the road to the non-functioning Congress, which in itself would be an abrogation of duty because the Congress isn't even open, and isn't functional when it is open, and is a win to Trump at the moment, regardless, all of that. I think they're struggling with this, and may they struggle into infinity. Can't think of anything better. Okay, so um, just a funny little snippet. This is how tarot works, right? It's often very accurate about the atmosphere around issues, but not good with timing. And so I just heard yesterday that Putin's right-hand man, Sergei Lavrov, who's been missing for a couple of weeks, and I thought, along with, I'm sure I wasn't alone in this, oh, whoops, fallen off the back of a boat, whatever, has surfaced. And he wants talks with the West. Now, I remember doing a video about Sergei Lavrov in 2017. And I said, look, he's Putin's right hand, but they're going to have a falling out, a massive falling out. And then nothing happened for years. And I thought, oh, well, it's just, it's taken all these years to play out. But Putin, who's notoriously paranoid, and with reason, has finally, well, Lavrov has split with him. So what does this mean? What does this mean for NATO? What does this mean for the US? What does it mean for all of us in the world? This might just seem like one guy breaking with Putin, but it isn't. It's a very big deal. He was chief of operations for everything. Let's, let's, I've moved to the circus cards. Here we go. Mm. Yeah, just too much. Oh my God. All right. Yeah. So this was him. My impression, because the first two cards are Pentacles, money. Okay, but the Page of Pentacles, he, I think it's not unrealistic to say he was in it for the money in the early days. He was a military oligarch. It's a special breed. All right. That was him. Now, the Four of Pentacles in other decks, it's the figure holding on to the pentacles really tight. I think he realizes the writing's on the wall for the Russian economy. Russians are going into a very long, cold winter with blackouts, with inadequate petrol, giant queues, the war still raging that they were told isn't a war and would be over in a matter of weeks. He senses the Russian people are on the brink. I think this is personal and for the Russian people. Check out this image. He felt that he couldn't talk to Putin anymore. So in the old days, Putin relied on him heavily, and they were deep, dark allies. But this is how he felt. And I think this is how the Russian people are feeling with this non-war that's ruining their lives as well. Successful drone strikes are penetrating Moscow and all the shortages, plus the embargoes. Yeah. And I'm sure with the Russian population, there is a big generational divide. I'd say over 45 or 50 are still just watching state television, and everyone under that age is looking at what's really happening, but everyone is feeling oppressed. The Ace of Cups, which can be joy and magnificence, but not with this series of cards, tears. And so the Ace of Cups can be too much emotions. Now, without wanting to stereotype, Russians aren't known for their emotive outbursts, but I think it was just too much. I think it's going to, he's more in touch than Putin is with what people are feeling. That's my overriding thing. Okay, look at this. So I just described this card. Here's the other card. Everything is pointing to a military and political disaster, and he doesn't want to be the name and the face associated with what could be a financial collapse. So there we go. All right. So, um, just on to other things now. I think a lot of people think Erica Kirk's making a big play, probably via JD's bedroom, and might run for president herself. No, married to the martyr for hate and all those other guys like Nick Fuentes and all the others, just these hate-filled machines. And I think we should take the approach of the women from the I've Had It podcast and just treat them as beta boys. They're not men. They actually haven't got to that stage yet. And that's it. So Mike Grinder Johnson, we already had in the last video, is I think on the way out. God knows who'll replace him. But let's have a look now. Oh, I just want to share a quote with you. And I don't have the source, which is bad of me as an academic, but you get the sentiment. It says, when the people are afraid of the government, it is tyranny. When the government's afraid of the people, it's democracy. Love that. Also, the turnout for these side elections has had a good proportion of younger voters. So Now, now, a few of you are asking, I'm going to read for you guys in a second, but about Trump's health when he's going so. I'm just not going there anymore. We can see with our own little eyeballs, this is not a well man. So, oh, I know what we could do. I don't see them going down the 25th Amendment route, but what is an interesting thing is obviously the power brokers at the top, the Vance supporters and so forth at the top, the Peter Thiels and these guys, they're moving on from Trump. And Trump has moved on from MAGA, and they don't need MAGA. Right? So this is a seismic shift because before everyone had to kowtow to Trump because he had this weird perverted magnetism for people who insisted on voting against their own interests. But he's shunted on. So let's just ask, will we see him taken out of office one way or another? Let's have a look. How will Trump leave us? Because I don't think the third term is relevant, actually, apart from the sheer audacity of it. Can you imagine him 3 or 4 years from now? Can you imagine the state he'd be in? So that's not a thing. What is a thing is what happens, next year, how much they let him run with it now, maybe let him take the fall for all these hideous tariffs and stuff, and then move in. Let's have a good look at that. Okay, this is about. Right, they're not there yet because they are thinking about it. Now, this is pacts, mergers, deals. This is still behind the scenes, unfortunately. It's still, but everything, the White House leaks like a sieve. So we'll find out what's happening with all of this. I think they're first of all, they're going to try and take the kind approach. Kind being for themselves. It's easier if he takes the fall. So they're going to try and play nice behind the scenes with him. He's getting more toey, as we say in Australia. It's a horse term, getting toey, because I think this is Trump himself. He doesn't like what's happening. I don't think he even gets it, but there's part of him that senses he doesn't have um, the emotional support that he did. Now, he doesn't have an emotional profile. He's not actually a sentient being. He is, no disrespect to Yetis, but truly, he's Yeti-like. So he is incapable of making the decision to go, is what I'm struggling to say. You know, I mean, Biden did as well. People do. Pelosi only retired now. People are very bad at identifying when their time is up. But they know he's a radical burden to them now. And once that happens, big money talks, and he can kiss his sorry limp buttocks goodbye, really. Now they're doing these calculations. Right? It's all about the timing of this decision. So I think they're going to have to make the decision, but this is also the card of the sacrifice. They know they're going to have to decide to sacrifice him at some point. Their only question is when. This is return on investment. When is he now seriously costing them actual seats? And in a funny way, all they care about is money. So they're doing the math. When is he not viable? And the answer's about now. So I think we won't get too far into next year before something happens. Like they they must be worried about the midterms. They've got to do everything they can, but let's hope Americans make it too big to steal and it will get over the line and there'll be a whole new world. So they'll want to be very busy between the beginning of next year and 2026. Part of that too, he's talked a couple of times about sending out $2,000 checks, which is like happened in most countries during COVID and stuff. That'll buy them some time because $2,000 is a lot of money to most people, and it's a hell of a lot of money to those who are already struggling. So that can buy him some time. Okay, now you guys, let's have a look for you guys. Oh, Gavin Newsom. Now, I'll admit it, I am a Gavin Newsom fan. No one is perfect. However, as regular viewers know, my thing about Gavin Newsom is do your thing, Gavin, and set the bar for other contenders to lift. But he is now going to Brazil as the governor of California, the fourth largest economy in the world. He should be at the table talking about climate change, radical issues. It's so good to know there's a grown up going to be around the table with all the other grown-ups. Hopefully something will emerge. Usually it's a plan to have another conference in a year and a half and nothing happens. I'm not saying these things are faultless, but he's de facto president now by doing this on the international stage. And see, this is part of the dilemma the Trumpkins have is he hears something like climate change, we're not going to go to that, thinking taking the muscle of America away is going to mean the conference is a failure. No, means people can talk more freely and not have to deal with an absolute clown. So this is another whole dimension. So go, Gavin. Okay, you guys. Oh, very nice. Now, Six of Pentacles, the card of charity. And I think this is what happens in adversity, like the US is up against it at this point of time in history. And this is people helping each other. Oh, I love that. So cool. And I hear from lots of you what you're doing with food banks, and really important if you're a recipient of benefits and so forth, you proudly claim that. I know partial benefits are going out. Some people have got the full benefit, others have got a part of it, others have got nothing yet, etc., etc. All this is going on. So this is about being kind and respectful to each other. Very good. So it's like real Christianity, just like all the world's major religions, emphasize charity. So this isn't about always the bricks and mortar churches, it's about the heart. Young people, we know that for young people to experience real poverty in their youth, it's a very hard thing to escape from. And so, young people here, if you've got young people in your life, talk to them about all this stuff. This is helping, this young page is focused on making their money grow. So let them voice their concerns to you and it's the same in Australia. Young people cannot afford to rent or buy, and retired people, or, the highest growing group of homeless in Australia is women over 50. That is scandalous. It is shocking. And everywhere, UK everywhere, is dealing with a housing affordability crisis. Canada, everywhere. So look, this youth is looking how to make this work. And it's the responsibility for all of us in our own countries to lobby our governments going, no, this is what's crippling young people. They have unstable work. If they're working, it's contract to contract. Even people my age are still working contract to contract. This is a consequence of neoliberalism, and it has to be acknowledged in the housing sector. And there needs to be lots of innovations in housing to make it more affordable. This is you guys having the clarity to speak up. And as we know, protests breed energy. So the No Kings created energy for that result for the vote and so forth. So this is not listening to the lies and the crap anymore. No, 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 no. Now, the Knight of Cups can be the false knight, which is why it's important for here. There will be more propaganda, there will be more outright lies, there will be more fogging, but you have the clarity at this time. Now, that's the sort of more negative interpretation of the Knight of Cups. So let's go back to its more traditional interpretation. We started with charity, and this is about bringing, it can be love for those of you who are in the market, can be love, but because this is a community reading, it's more like by bringing this energy to people in need, and even people who are technically in need are often the ones who are kind to other people. And so kindness actually has a huge role to play until I see you next time. And so, my beloveds, tomorrow, tomorrow I fly at midnight to Athens, where I'll be meeting up with Dave Johnson. And don't worry, you are coming too, and I'll be doing reporting what's going on in the ground from other parts of the world. So you guys take care, and I'll see you soon. Ciao. Ciao, ciao.